ISIS in the burbs. I have more frightening details about the two yuppie jihadi wannabes who were radicalized online. Some of the things they wanted to do were vile. Affordability. It's a message voters sent the president and his party loud and clear this week. So, did he get it? Plus, why did a successful Dallas Cowboys player end up taking his own life? We know the shocking things his girlfriend told first responders. Those stories and more today, Friday, November 7th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. She was evil, corrupt, and only focused on bad things for our country. That was President Trump commemorating former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's 4 decades in politics after the California Democrat announced her retirement. Yes, that was a direct quote. Putting the, let's call it, frosty relationship between the president and Pelosi aside, the veteran lawmaker is stepping down with quite a few feathers in her hat, including being the first woman ever to become Speaker of the House. Now, Pelosi will finish out her current term to the end of 2026 and then not seek re-election. Now, had the octogenarian run again, she was set to face primary challenges, including one from the former chief of staff for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The concept of affordability. Do you or I feel like we can afford our everyday lives? Well, it's a question that's going to be central for President Trump and the GOP between now and next year's midterms. And the president knows it. Trump already spends a great deal of time talking about how things are more affordable on his watch. Here he is on Thursday.
Under the Biden administration, a Thanksgiving meal with all the trimmings costs 25% more. In other words, our Thanksgiving this year coming up will cost 25% less than sleepy Joe Biden's.
While President Trump pushes talk of cheaper prices, Vice President J.D. Vance posted a plea to his party online to, quote, focus on the home front, and added that affordability is, quote, the metric by which will ultimately be judged in 2026. Well, the Post looked at the cold hard facts here, and while certain items are undoubtedly less expensive now than they were a year ago, taken as a whole, 2 of the biggest retailers in the country, Target and Walmart, saw prices actually jump more than 5% year over year. This comes from an analysis that looked at 16,000 items on each company's website. Then there's September's Consumer Price Index. It showed that food is up more than 3%. Now, our reporters dug into prices of home goods, pet goods, health and beauty items, electronics. All of them, each and every one, were up between 6 and 10% year over year. Now, voters sent a clear message during this week's election, and it seems the White House heard it. Now, we're going to keep an eye on it, and if you want to take a look at item by item, I'm going to link to the Post reporting in the show notes. A woman in Texas was rescued this week from one of the most bizarre and grisly situations I've reported on. Police in Austin found this unnamed victim chained up in the backyard of a house and tortured with BB guns. She was naked from the waist down, chained to metal exercise equipment, and authorities say she had severe injuries, suggesting that she'd been out there for quite a while. While police were really focused on freeing her, 5 people who were inside the house attempted to flee, but they were immediately captured. Police also found 2 children living in the home who were then placed in the care of Child Protective Services. So how did this poor soul end up in this situation? Well, the victim told investigators that she was friends with one of those 5 people in the house, a woman named Michelle Garcia. But police said in the understatement of the century, quote, at some point, they decided they no longer liked her. Now, the woman says she was forced to live outside for weeks. And mind you, it's been dipping into the 50s at night in Austin recently. And she says when she tried to escape, she was beaten. Detectives added that the victim was fed just 1 plate of food per day and was shackled with both wrists locked behind her. And according to an affidavit obtained by the Austin American-Statesman newspaper, one of the 5 who were arrested admitted to using a BB gun to chase the woman around the yard because he, quote, effing hates her. We're learning more about those New Jersey teens who got wrapped up in jihadi group chats before being nabbed by the feds this week. Now, this was all related to that planned terror attack in Michigan. According to documents released by authorities, Milo Sidarit and Tomas Khan Jimenez Guzel wanted to behead infidels and become famous for ISIS-style attacks on Jews. Remember, these are 19-year-olds from well-to-do families in upper-middle-class neighborhoods. Sidarit raged about his mother having Jewish friends and said he wanted to execute 500 Jews and use his car to mow down a pro-Israel march in his hometown of Montclair, New Jersey. So, how close do authorities believe they were to carrying out these plans, and how did these well-off teens end up so radicalized? The Post senior reporter Chris Nisi has been digging into all of this, and he joins me now. Chris, how realistic were these alleged threats? They were pretty brutal. I mean, how close were the attacks to becoming reality?
Well, Caitlin, sources tell us this was a very real plot and definitely went way beyond the aspirational phase. These men were under federal scrutiny for the better part of a year, with authorities closely monitoring their communication on social media, group chats, and encrypted messaging apps, as their plot sort of was meticulously pieced together. The men arrested in Michigan last week had acquired high-powered rifles, a shotgun, over 1,600 rounds of ammunition, and even scouted locations in suburban Detroit to carry out the alleged attack. As for this week's arrests, two of the men, one arrested at Newark Airport and another in Washington State, had plane tickets to Istanbul and had said in those very same group chats they planned to travel to Syria after arriving in Turkey to train as ISIS fighters. So this is a situation where some very hateful and very angry young men had acquired weapons and plane tickets after chatting about waging jihad and spoke at length amongst themselves in great detail about the logistics of carrying out these plans.
I don't know what it is about the reality of their daily life. I mean, this kind of well-to-do lifestyle for people who aren't familiar with this part of New Jersey, Montclair is beautiful. It's well off. It's picturesque. It gives you that sort of picture-perfect Americana idea. Not what we think of when we're thinking about homegrown terrorists. So what do we know about how these young men practically boys, they're teen. I mean, you say men, but they're 19. They still aren't kids, even though they're legally adults. How do we know how they were radicalized?
So that's sort of the million-dollar question, which we're actively trying to get to the bottom of. As I mentioned, these men were absolutely boiling over with hate, both against people of the Jewish faith and allegedly even against members of the LGBTQ community. Authorities pointed out that the men arrested in Michigan had scouted out bars and restaurants popular among gay and trans people. As for the men from Montclair, like you said, rich town, these are guys who seemingly had every advantage in life. Successful families, high school athletes, seemingly bright kids, living in a great community. But the criminal complaints against them was honestly jaw-dropping. They spoke in such disturbing and graphic detail about wanting to hurt Jewish people, even wishing that another Holocaust would happen.
To think that it was also like friends of the family, that stuck out to me, because you have this idea of they were raised around a variety of people, not so insular. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, the one kid supposedly even told his own mother that her Jewish friends deserved to die. So this is, clearly some disturbed individuals, if what is in the criminal complaints is accurate. But, the bottom line is it's sort of hard to imagine hatred bubbling up organically. Especially in such a diverse and upper class, New York City suburb like Montclair.
No, you mentioned that other arrest made in Washington State that was related to all of this. So now we've got arrests in 3 states, and this is not the tri-state area. These aren't states that are anywhere near each other. So how was that Washington State arrest connected to these two? And have the feds offered any thoughts on how much bigger this could potentially get?
Right. So based on a criminal complaint that I've been looking through, the man arrested in Washington, Saeed Ali Mira, is actually a co-defendant with Tomas Khan Jimenez Guzel, who is the Montclair man feds arrested at Newark Airport on Wednesday. They're both charged with the same crimes, which is conspiracy to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, which prosecutors have identified as ISIS. They both had plane tickets to Turkey. They were going to fly out within 24 hours of each other, with the eventual plan of joining ISIS in Syria and engaging in jihad, which they extensively chatted about for months leading up to this. In one intercepted communication of Jimenez Gazelle, he said 13 men can cause so much damage. And so far, there have been 6 arrests between Michigan, New Jersey, and Washington State. So between that and what we're hearing from sources, it's very likely more arrests are coming.
Yeah, I mean, to hear the number 13 there and know that we already have 6, of course, it stands to reason that there could be as many as double arrests coming down the pipeline. Chris Nisi, thank you so much.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Marshawn Kneeland, a defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound this week. TMZ Sports reported that Kneeland's girlfriend was on the phone with authorities around the time of his death, telling him that Kneeland was armed, had a history of mental illness, and said, quote, "He will end it all." The Texas Department of Public Safety says that its officers attempted to stop a vehicle for a traffic violation Wednesday night, but the vehicle didn't stop, and then a police chase unfolded. Authorities later found the vehicle abandoned and evidence that it had been in a collision. Kneeland is believed to be the driver of that car. He fled on foot and was later found dead inside a porta potty. The 24-year-old was drafted in the second round of the 2024 NFL draft by the Cowboys. He appeared in 18 games over the past 2 seasons with 4 starts. And Kneeland even scored his first NFL touchdown, picking up a blocked punt in the end zone just this past Monday night against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I have an update on a story I first told you about last week. Abby Zwerner, the teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old first grade student, well, she's been awarded $10 million by a jury. Zwerner had filed a lawsuit against the principal of the school, Ebony Parker, who she said did nothing to thwart the shooting despite knowing that the child had a gun. Well, a Virginia jury sided with Zwerner, finding the school principal liable to the tune of $10 million. And it's a lot of money, significantly, though, less than what the teacher had been seeking, which was $40 million. Zwerner's legal team applauded the verdict, saying, quote, "When the city of Newport News and its schools failed to protect their teachers, students, and citizens, we held them accountable through the courts. Now it's time for the city to ensure Abby receives the justice this verdict represents." Now, Parker also faces criminal charges of child neglect. And do you remember back in August when that former DOJ worker chucked his Subway sandwich at a Border Patrol agent in Washington, D.C.? I know it feels like a lifetime ago. Well, he was charged with felony assault for hurling his hoagie. And yesterday, a jury cleared Sean Dunn, finding him not guilty. The absolute centerpiece of the felonious foot-long proceedings was a law enforcement officer testifying under the threat of perjury that the Sammy stank of onions and mustard, which frankly, raw onions and mustard with whatever is passing for lunch meat over there, that has to be like a violation of the Geneva Convention or something. I don't know. The big debate was, would tuna salad have been worse? Would that have gotten a guilty verdict? My friends, don't order either of those things. And if you don't want me throwing sandwiches at you, like and follow the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And I will see you on Monday.